Nigeria's biologically diverse landscape encompasses lowland and mountain rainforests, mangroves, swamps, and mountain grasslands. Yet, the proliferation of subsistence farms and large-scale timber harvesting forecast bad news for native wildlife, particularly the African elephant and the extremely rare cross-river gorilla. Gorillas and elephants need large, continuous ranges to survive. Given the dangers of ignoring the threats to the ecosystem from acute depletion of some plants and animals, efforts were made in the past to preserve the nation's wildlife through the establishment of protected areas. However, poachers with sophisticated weapons have managed to enter these sanctuaries, killing even endangered animals.
We never lack for laws, but most of these laws are obsolete. They are very weak. That is one. The structures are there for which we can actually act. We have several ministries of environment. We have Federal Ministry of Environment, different state ministries of environment, and departments coordinating the environment. We have, at the National Assembly level, we have a Senate Committee on the Environment. We have, at the Federal House of Representatives, we have House Committee on the Environment, and so also at the state houses of assembly in our different states. We have, the structures are there, but we need to go back to the basics. Let us look at these laws, the policies again, where we need to strengthen them, we strengthen. And also, we must tie the policies to enforcement. One thing is to enact, another thing is to have the wherewithal, the political will to actually enforce these laws, these policies, so that offenders are not allowed to go scot-free. Presently, like what obtains in Nigeria presently is that everybody cares less for what he or she does. And that is why our actions at the federal, state, and local levels have remained uncoordinated. Federal Ministry of Environment, who is supposed to be the overall ministry in terms of policy, legislation, and enforcement, is not doing much in this regard. And that is why most of the states' ministries of environment are at best doing their own differently. There has to be a national policy, review of national policy on the environment, strengthened, promoted, encouraged, and disseminated to people so that you and I will know what we stand, our roles, responsibility in the context of the policy and enforcement.
Cross River is the only major biological hotspot left in Nigeria with its abundant primary rainforests. However, this position may be lost due to human activities. The Cross River gorillas were once common in some parts of southeastern Nigeria, but their populations have declined as farming and fire have damaged their forest homes. Cross River National Park, created in 1991 from existing forest reserves, provides important gorilla habitat. Some of the park's reserves date to the 1930s, when established communities were permitted to remain inside the forest and a series of enclaves were created to accommodate them. Elephants, which once roamed across Nigeria, live only in a few protected areas today. Major carnivores in Nigeria include leopards, as well as African wild dogs and lions. Both threatened species are declining across the continent. Conservation efforts in Nigeria have, in recent years, focused on consolidating and protecting habitats such as the lush Afi and Mbe mountain chains, which link Nigeria's Cross River National Park with the Takamanda Mourne Forest in neighboring Cameroon. But protected areas are not immune to farm expansion, which is challenging conservationists to find a sustainable and appropriate balance.
Yeah, definitely it's a great drawback. You know, it shrinks our carbon reserve, the forest that we often put out there, whether it is in the community forest, whether it's in the reserve area, and what have you. It shrinks our carbon stock substantially. But we think that we can still address this problem by introducing eco-agriculture, and where people will farm in environment-friendly manner. They don't need to cut down the pristine forest. We have bush, we have other places like secondary forest. We can restrict our farming activities in that area. But we feel there's the need to engage the stakeholders, the communities, as far as this is concerned, so that they will adopt new farming practices, farming practices that are environment friendly.
The incentives provided by nature can enable people to have innovations in new technology, in building enterprise based on the reality of natural resources we have, and not only exploiting, cutting logs. When you say you are dealing with natural resources or you are into forestry, it should not mean that it's only when you are a logger or when you just destroy the forest. You can still use the same set of trees, you collect fruits from them, you package them into use and you sell them into the city. You can live on that. I did some interviews, some studies with some communities in Cross River State when I was working there. And I asked him what is the value. I asked some people in the community, what is the value of forest to them? They say forest is valuable to them because they depend on it for their local environment in the village. And that's where they get their vegetable afang and they get bush mango there. And I asked, which one is important? Is it the logs or those vegetables? And they say the vegetables and the fruits are more important 6 times than the logs. And I asked why. They say the logs doesn't belong to them because they don't get the money. It is the man in the city who get the money to buy the machine, to buy the chainsaw that benefit from the logs. And when the logs are cut, the trees that are providing the fruits are degraded, they have degraded the environment. Those fruits, there's reduction in productivity. So what I'm trying to say is that our government should focus on, our government and even companies should look at some of those simple things that make people to earn their living and enjoy their living rather than, everybody like good roads, you can see, but you don't need big, massive roads to go to rural areas, but create opportunity for them to link the market with ease and let people have the view that they can still live in other parts of Nigeria without Lagos or Kano or Port Harcourt and still earn their living. But you need to build and encourage enterprise that enables young people to tap into that opportunity. It's happening in other countries and it can happen in our country too. So that's part of environmental management, because when more people are involved in wise use of the environment management action will be in place.